Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's April 26th meeting of the Brighton Town Board. I'm Bill Maley, and we welcome you all here tonight. We will be starting our open forum very shortly. That's the opportunity for members of the public to share their thoughts, their comments with the town board. If you're watching us on YouTube or on our cable access channel, you'll have to log into the Zoom format of the meeting in order to speak during the open forum. There are detailed instructions for logging into the Zoom broadcast on the Town of Brighton webpage, www.townofbrighton.org. Our meetings, as they have been, are accessible to the deaf and hard of hearing community with our ASL interpreters, Allie and Heather. Thank you both so much. We appreciate the service that you provide to the community. As a reminder, the agenda for tonight's meeting, as well as all the materials we'll be relying on in making the decisions that we'll be making tonight, they're available in the back of the room for those of you that are here in person. They are also available on the Town of Brighton webpage. As we always do, we will start the meeting tonight with the pledge. I'll ask Councilmember Warner to lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chris. Tonight we have three proclamations. We have a report from the Conservation Board, and I'm pleased to see so many Conservation Board members here. And we also have a report from our Chief Diversity Officer on the status and the progress of the work we've been doing in diversity, equity, and inclusion. But we'll start with those proclamations. First, a little bit belatedly, but there's a reason for that, we are recognizing Earth Day, which was celebrated this past Saturday on April 22nd. Earth Day was first celebrated in 1970, and many of you have seen me either wearing or on my Facebook page the Earth Day Theta, Greek letter Theta button that I bought in Ann Arbor, Michigan back in 1970 on that first Earth Day. And there were some 20 million people celebrating that first Earth Day, and it is now the largest public celebration of its kind in the world. This past Saturday, I was privileged to be invited to speak at the Climate Summit at Brighton High School. It was held by the Climate Club at Brighton High School. It was a great event. Karen Berger also spoke. Karen is here as well, and you'll be hearing from her in just a moment. But they had asked me to talk about what we're doing at the Town of Brighton level. County Legislator Sue Hughes Smith was also, she was a keynote speaker. But the subject of my talk, I took it from a popular bumper sticker of the day. Think globally, act locally. And the message was, we can't solve the problems of climate change around the world entirely here in Brighton, but we can do what we can do. And we owe it to our community. We owe it to our children and to our grandchildren to strive to do everything we can do here at the local level to address climate change. And to that end, I spoke about some of the many things we've done to address climate change, our status as a climate smart community, a clean energy community, our work on our climate action plan, our various planning projects. We've done a lot, but we're going to have to continue to do more going forward. As I mentioned, County Legislator Hugh Smith was a keynote for the summit, and Karen Berger spoke about climate justice. So it was great to have representation from the town there at the high school. But tonight, one of our themes is volunteers. That's going to be sort of a recurring theme you're going to hear tonight. So I'm going to invite Dennis Adams and anyone else you would like to have join you. Dennis, at the podium, please. Okay. Well, Dennis is a longtime community volunteer. Dennis has served on the Conservation Board and in fact chaired the Conservation Board and has really provided important service to the town. We are so grateful for all those years of service to the town, but probably more importantly, we're grateful for your service to the earth. So let me read this proclamation. Sticking together here. Here's the one. Whereas, on April 22nd, 1970, 20 million Americans, or 10% of the U.S. population at the time, took to the streets, college campuses, and hundreds of cities to protest environmental ignorance and demand a new way forward for our planet. And whereas because of their dedication and determination, the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, were created, and the Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, and Endangered Species Act were enacted by Congress. Whereas the environmental movement, like any other, was created and is sustained by people who willingly devote their time and energy to promote change. And whereas Dennis Adams is such a person, and his passion for protecting nature and devotion to serving the community have made quantifiable positive change possible in Brighton. Whereas a member of the Town of Brighton's Conservation Board since February 2002, Dennis deftly extended his fierce protection of the natural surroundings of his family's longtime home at the edge of Corbett's Glen to serve the entire town. And whereas from 2006 to 2022, Dennis helmed the Conservation Board as its chair, employing a leadership style that was both artful and organic, reflective of his talents as a visual artist. And whereas a staunch supporter of town parks and open spaces and an avid advocate for a healthier environment, it is fitting that we honor Dennis Adams for his lifelong dedication to conservation as we acknowledge the importance of Earth Day, which is now the largest civic observance in the world. Whereas tonight we reaffirm our commitment to environmental sustainability and sincerely thank Dennis Adams, who graciously gave the town 21 years of volunteer service on the Conservation Board. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, William W. Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and the members of our Town Council do hereby recognize April 22, 2023 as Earth Day in the town of Brighton, and ask that, like Dennis Adams has, each of us embrace the power of community to create a healthier planet. This proclamation is signed the 26th day of April 2023 by myself and by my colleagues on the board, and I'm very proud and grateful to present it to you, Dennis.
Thank you, Bill.
Display it to our photographers. Would you like to say it?
I would like
A word
to
or
say
two.
something. Well, first of all,
Where? Don't
Now, first of all, I would like to recognize the man over here with the camera, Blair Hornbuckle, who organized the 20th anniversary Earth Day celebration right here. Blair, why don't you stand up for us? I'd also like to recognize the fine people that I worked with on the Conservation Board. Now, you stand up too. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Dennis. One of those people that stood up was Dr. Karen Berger. I had to throw the doctor in, who will be presenting tonight the annual report of the Conservation Board. So Karen, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So before I read the report into the record, I'd just like to again thank Dennis for all of his years of service. Thank current and past members of the Conservation Board, Christine Corrado as our board liaison, and Rick DiStefano as the staffer who keeps everything running. And thanks for the chance to read this into the record. So this is the Town of Brighton Conservation Board Annual Report 2022. 2022 saw a return to normalcy when in June the Conservation Board was able to reestablish in-person meetings after a year and a half of virtual meetings via Zoom, a very welcome event. At its 12 meetings during calendar year 2022, the board reviewed a total of 14 projects representing proposed development work on a range of residential, commercial, and nonprofit properties. It provided comments or raised conservation-related issues to the town's planning board on 11 of those projects. The majority of proposed work reviewed involved individual structures and existing site modifications, but the board did review several notable projects, including 1925 South Clinton, retail and restaurant building, 3108 East Avenue, gas station convenience store, 3450 Winton Place, the shopping plaza rehabilitation, and 1666 Winton Road South, existing school building conversion. The majority of the board's comments were related to trees, the number, placement, and species, the extent of impervious surface coverage, and issues related to development on land with steep slopes or adjacent to watercourses. In addition, the board continued its longstanding advocacy for the planting of a diversity of native trees and plant species, use of green infrastructure, alternative energy use where appropriate, and amenities that support alternative transportation such as bike racks and electric vehicle charging stations. In addition, during 2022, the board functioned as the town's tree council, reviewing 37 town trees, where we recommended removal and replacement for 34 of those, and preservation for the others. We also provided networking opportunities between various town and county environmental and conservation organizations, and maintained representation on the Monroe County Environmental Management Council. We promoted and participated in the town's Arbor Day celebration and advocated for an update to the town's tree inventory. So that concludes the end of the official report. Just to add a couple more other words, we're really excited for what lies ahead. I was thrilled to hear about the biking improvements that will be taking place on Elmwood. We will be continuing to advocate for future projects, looking at ways to collaborate with the Sustainability Oversight Committee, other community groups, and things in the neighborhood. So I think we have a really strong board and look forward to continuing the legacy that Dennis left before us, and appreciate the town for all of its support of the work that we do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen, and thank you to all the members of the Conservation Board. That was a weighty and important report, and one of the things that I appreciate is hearing all the many things that we have the opportunity to listen to your recommendations and implement, like those bike lanes, like the tree work that's being done, reviewing possible projects for the use of geothermal as an alternative energy source. We're going to keep doing this. It's so important, and I'm grateful for the work and really the way, Dennis, you transformed the Conservation Board, and Karen, you're taking it on and continuing that great work. So thank you very much. Our second proclamation tonight is to celebrate an occasion that is not quite as well known as Earth Day, but it recognizes someone who makes the lives of Brighton residents better every day. And I'm going to ask Town Clerk Dan Amon to please join me at the podium.
These are the ones who are supposed to be at the table.
This week is recognized far and wide as Municipal Clerks Week. And our Town Clerk, Dan Amon, exemplifies all of the qualities one could hope for in a municipal clerk. So we have a proclamation recognizing this week. I do want to say that the entire team in the clerk's office works, just so well together to earn this recognition. And I know Dan would be the first one to tell us all that his is not a one-person shop, that everyone in the clerk's office works together to provide what really is extraordinary service that our residents receive every day. So, let me read this proclamation. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk is a time-honored and vital part of local government that exists throughout the world. Whereas in Brighton, the office of the town clerk provides the professional link between citizens, local governing bodies, and the agencies of government at other levels. Whereas municipal clerks pledge to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all and supporting the proper administration of democracy. Whereas in honor of this special week, we are pleased to highlight the excellent work of the Town of Brighton Town Clerk's Office and to pay tribute to our very own town clerk, Daniel Amon, whose dedication to providing quality services, modernizing records management, and supporting the work of this town council makes him a vital partner and colleague in Town Hall. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, William W. Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and members of our Town Council do hereby proclaim April 30th through May 6th as Municipal Clerks Week in the Town of Brighton, and proudly recognize Daniel Amon, Town Clerk and Receiver of Taxes, for his contributions, his many contributions, to the smooth functioning of town government. This proclamation is signed April 26, 2023 by myself and by my colleagues and yours here at the table. Thank you, Dan. Great. Anything you want to say?
As most of you know, I'm much more comfortable on the periphery than standing out in front of everything. But as Bill mentioned, it's all about the staff, and huge credit to all of them for all the hard work they put in every day. And just try to continue to offer the excellent service to the community. And thank you for allowing me to lead the team to do so.
And finally, the week of April 23rd through 29th is Crime Victims' Rights Week. Crime Victims' Rights Week recognizes that victims of crime often feel as though they have no place to turn after they've been victimized by crime, and sometimes even as though they become victims a second time through the challenges of the process. The Brighton Police Department works with a number of agencies who provide support for crime victims, and I think that's an important part of the overall law enforcement and community policing focus of our police department. Whereas the town of Brighton is committed to the safety of its citizens and providing needed services for people whose lives have been negatively impacted by crime. Whereas public safety and protecting victims of crime have always been priorities in the town of Brighton. And the Brighton Police Department, under the guidance of Police Chief David Cathaldi, works with member agencies of the Coalition of Crime Victims of Monroe County, including Willow Domestic Violence Center, Lifespan, and the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, all to ensure that crime victims' rights are protected. And whereas the town of Brighton joins with countless other communities across the state and nation in support of National Crime Victims' Rights Week, and its theme this year, entitled, quote, Survivor Voices, Elevate, Engage, and Affect Change. Whereas due to the impassioned work of citizen advocates before and after passage of the Victims of Crime Act of 1984, our awareness of the burdens borne by victims has greatly increased, but our work continues as we strive to respond to survivors' needs and create crime victims' services that are increasingly inclusive, accessible, and trauma-informed. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, William W. Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and the members of our Town Council, do hereby recognize April 23rd through 29th, 2023, as National Crime Victims' Rights Week. We acknowledge the suffering endured by victims of crime, offer our continued support of crime victims and their families, and encourage our residents and all Americans to uphold the cause of protecting victims' rights. And this proclamation is signed the 26th day of April, 2023, by myself and the members of the Brighton Town Board. Chief, I should have had you come up. But come on up now.
Thank you.
Come on up now.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I'll give you this. Would you like to say a few words?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Bill. And I can't do what I do without the men and women in the police department. And I often am out meeting with victims of crime anywhere. I mean, it runs the gamut. I was just, before this meeting, I was out meeting with some people here in the community that felt as if they were, victimized. So it's really important work that we do. I appreciate all the support that I get from Bill and the town board. I couldn't do it without all of you. So thank you so much, Bill. Thank you.
Together here. There we go. Okay, finally, before we get to our open forum, it has been just over a year since Miriam Moore, our Chief Diversity Officer, began working for the town. Hiring a Chief Diversity Officer stems from the town's IDEA plan and the work of the IDEA Board. Councilmember Robin Wilt has been liaison to the IDEA Board since the start, and really the concept of the IDEA Board was hers, and Mark Kukanovich is currently the chair of that board, and Mark is here with us as well. Implementation of the plan, we've adopted the plan, but its implementation is really where the rubber meets the road. It's important as well to report back to the community on the important work being done under Miriam's leadership as Chief Diversity Officer to advance the important issues within the rubric of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So therefore tonight, Miriam Moore, Brighton's Chief Diversity Officer, will report to the community for the first time, and hopefully the first of many such reports, on her first year of work for the town of Brighton. And I am so pleased that we are fortunate to have Miriam and her skill sets and her community relationships and her insight and commitment to this work as part of our senior management team at Town Hall. So I'll turn things over to Chief Diversity Officer Miriam Moore. And I think we may go back so we can see the screen.
That's okay. Okay, to the Honorable, what's that? Okay, but I'm gonna go with it. Okay. I'll pull back. To the Honorable Town Supervisor, Bill Maley, esteemed members of the Town Board, to my peers of the senior leadership team here at Town Hall, visitors, residents, and friends, good evening. You know, it is hard to believe that a year has passed since I took on the role of Chief Diversity Officer with the town of Brighton. There have been many touch points, including strong connections from within. You know, I must take this time to thank all of you, members of the Idea Board, Mark as the chair, residents of the town, for your continued commitment to this work. So I will take the time to give you a snapshot of some of this year's highlights. And I'm going to actually take a seat because I have great sight, but not that good. Okay, so in this year, I have continued to be the lead driver among the IDEA officers and the IDEA board, developing agendas for our monthly meetings. That point ties into the communication, education, and celebration key area of focus stemming from the IDEA plan. Last year, the town had its second annual Juneteenth celebration, which ties in again to communication, education, and celebration, key area number 1. The town also had a Pride celebration. This is town-wide, tying into communication, education, and celebration, key area number 1. You know, it's important for me as the Chief Diversity Officer to get my messaging out, to get the messaging of the town around the centralization of diversity, equity, and inclusion to all staff members. And so that has been a part of my commitment to send out a posting on a quarterly basis. Also serving as someone who submits article submissions in the Town of Brighton's newsletter on a quarterly basis. The town's leadership and myself have committed to quarterly workshops. The first was presented in the fourth quarter of 2002. The title around that workshop was Unconscious Biases, and I want to thank the the elected officials and the town's leadership for taking part in that and engaging in an authentic manner. That also ties into communication, education, and celebration, key area number 1. The second DE&I leadership workshop took place in February, so first quarter of 2023. The title of that workshop was Power and Privilege. Not an easy topic, but I want to thank the leadership team and elected officials for hanging in there with me through those tough conversations. Another tie-in to communication, education, and celebration, key area number 1. When I came on board, I was adamant that this work could not be done in a siloed manner, and I again want to thank my peers on the leadership team for their willingness to partake in interdepartmental work. And so the review of town job postings is a part of the bundle of recommendations that stems from work with the Human Resource Director and myself that ties into policies and practices, key area number 3. Interdepartmental work with the Chief of Police, the town attorney, the town supervisor and I are committed to monthly meetings. That has begun. That ties into public safety, key area number 5. And I just want to say this part of this course of action came from recommendations that were a part of my immediate plans and allows myself, the town supervisor, and the town attorney to remain abreast of any heightened situations stemming from the public safety side. Interdepartmental work with the Human Resources Director. I spoke a little bit about that. That ties into policies and practices, key area number 3. The 1619 project book discussion and slow read. That is a partnership between 2 Brighton residents, myself, the town of Brighton, and SUNY Empire. That is in progress right now, convening members of the town's residents around this well-celebrated book. Listen and learn with leadership. This was one of the first parts of my charted path here with the town of Brighton, spending 30 minutes with each member of the leadership team to find out what their goals are stemming from their department, and also creating a space for shared vision. Representation with the Islamic school choice. That ties into engagement and partnerships, inclusion and representation. This is symbolic in many ways. The Greater Rochester Jewish Federation and the Levine Center to End Hate. Another tie-in to engagement and partnerships, inclusion and representation. That's key area number 2 of the IDEA plan. For the first time, the town celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It was a great celebration town-wide. We were able to secure some fantastic community partners, including a Brighton resident, students from Brighton Central, and members of the Garth Fagan Dance Studio. Review of internal disciplinary actions. You know, we are committed to being fair and equitable in all of our ways, and so this is an area that ties into policies and practices, key area number 3. That work has begun, ensuring that there are several touch points and allowing several members of the leadership team to look at points of action and intended outcomes regarding staff. Association of Towns presentation, one of my favorites. I was able to join the town supervisor and town board member Wilt in presenting to towns who were interested in New York State on doing what we have so boldly taken on here within the town of Brighton. And the employee relationships group expounded, it's really important for the town in its work to have outside partnerships that, and in this particular point of action, we are, we're looking at having a wide pool of job candidates and a diverse pool and a strong pool, and we know that we cannot do this alone. So, I'm really proud of all of the work here. Again, these are just some of the highlights, but the work has just begun, and I'm looking forward to continued partnerships with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. And like you, the opportunity to speak to the Association of Towns meeting, annual meeting in February was a great one, and the interest that other communities showed in the work that we are doing is really indicative of how important that work is and the commitment that Brighton has shown by being the first town or cities that have positions similar to the Chief Diversity Officer, but we're not aware of any other towns in upstate New York that have an IDEA plan or any kind of a DEI plan and a Chief Diversity Officer. But as I said, the rubber meets the road when you implement it. And I appreciate this update on, the work you've done over the past year, largely in the implementation of the plan. And I know that work will continue. Does anybody, any board members have any questions about Miriam's presentation?
Don't have any questions, but again, I just want to echo your profound respect for all of the work that Miriam and the members of the IDEA board and all of the interactions that you facilitated throughout this community. It really does strengthen our community by emphasizing those ties, and I couldn't be more pleased with the progress that we have made and look forward to the continued engagement.
And I think the breadth of the recognition, is, as we've talked about, your next quarterly presentation, we anticipate will relate to the LGBTQ plus community and our work there. A perfect lead into Pride Month coming up later in the year, and recognizing that the diversity of our community can be seen or it can be unseen, and together we make Brighton a better place for all of us. So thank you, Miriam, for that presentation. Any other questions? Then we'll move on to the open forum, which we hold at the start of every town board meeting. The open forum is an opportunity to address the board concerning any matter relating to the town, whether or not it's an item on our agenda this evening. If you're here in person and you'd like to speak during the open forum, simply raise your hand so that we can recognize you. I'll ask you to come to the podium, and if you would, state your name and address and share your comments. If you're here remotely and you'd like to speak during the open forum, you must first join the meeting on Zoom. As I mentioned before, there are detailed instructions for doing that on the town's webpage. You will be admitted from the Zoom waiting room by the host, and if you'd like to speak, please use the raised hand Zoom function. I'll ask all speakers during the open forum, whether in person or remote, to please state your name and address. Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. And I will give you a 30-second advance warning before your time expires. We may not be able to answer any questions that you may have, particularly if a question relates to a matter that's not on the agenda this evening. But our goal here tonight and during the open forum that we hold at every town board meeting is to give you the opportunity to share your thoughts with the board and for us to listen to your words. So please direct your remarks to the town board and not to the room or to other speakers. Please refrain from personal attacks and from outbursts of any kind during the open forum. Is there anyone here that would like to address the board during the open forum tonight? Seeing no one, is there anyone on Zoom that would like to address the board? And I don't see anyone on Zoom with their hands raised.
Bill, if we have no one for the open forum, I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Excuse me, Mr. Warner.
Yes, sir.
I do have a requested amendment to the agenda, and I haven't had a chance
Okay.
to talk to you about this, Supervisor, either, but I just received an email that leads me to request that the last matter under new business be moved to an executive session
All right,
for discussion later by the town board.
good.
With that amendment, I move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Communications, motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Second?
We have a few more tonight, but we will formally be receiving the Conservation Board's annual report that was read earlier tonight. We have some good news relating to a grant for charging stations, inspection report on our dog park, and some other items. So we have a motion to receive and file. Any discussion on those? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Committee reports. We'll start with Community Services Committee. Robin?
Thank you, Bill. The Community Services met last Wednesday, April 19th. Among the items that we discussed were under continuing business, park issues. We have winterized facilities will officially be open for the season on April 27th. As the weather seems to be safely transitioned past additional freezing temperatures, staff
I hope so.
Staff is now busy preparing all town facilities and fields for spring operation. Seasonal laborers will begin shifts in May to supplement our full-time workforce. Field supplies are being inventoried, ordered, and delivered pending seasonal grounds maintenance. New mowing contractors will begin making passes through the parks this week. Planning continues for our July 4th festivities, which, after benchmarking other communities, will include an expanded fireworks display and increased offerings for stage performances, among other exciting features. Athletic fields requests are once again in high demand for our youth organizations, and staff is working hard to accommodate and manage those requests while maintaining our full complement of scheduled recreational programming. In conjunction with George Smith and Craig Smith of the Brighton High School Youth Climate Club, the town will be holding an Arbor Day planting event at Buckland Park on Saturday, April 29th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. We hope to see members of the community there. And then an update to our recreation programs. We had a discussion of full and part-time vacancies being filled within the department, one of which is, I know, on the agenda for tonight. We're excited to return to more normal staffing levels in the near future. As of April 16th, the Brighton Farmers Market is back outdoors at Brighton High School. Crowds have been amazing thus far, and there's much excitement around this season and new and returning vendors. The market is also increasing promotion of the SNAP program and additional benefit that is available with usage at the Brighton Farmers Market. Staff is working hard to anticipate and accommodate space constraints when the Brighton High School bus loop construction begins at the conclusion of the school year. The Bands at Buckland concert series scheduling is underway, and we look forward to another wonderful series full of diverse musical performances. Event sponsors are currently being sought for the concert series and for other townwide events. Summer playground camp registration is underway for Brighton residents only. Spaces are filling up fast, so please make sure you secure your spot as soon as possible. Full details on our playground camps is available online at www.townofbrighton.org/rec. If you have additional questions, please don't hesitate to call our Recreation Department. With those questions, that number is 585-784-5260, extension 0. An update to our winter farmers market. Work continues around site development with fill and grading on the grounds having been addressed and additional safety of existing structures being worked on. Town crews have been taking advantage of the weather and have diligently erected the steel framing of the structure adjacent to the barn area, and we will now await contractors' work to enclose that area. We heard a full report with regard to our Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Advisory Board, but I did just want to emphasize that the board continues to support the 1619 project Slow Read and Discussion that has been co-facilitated by Sue Barocas and Susan Boland at SUNY Empire State College. The remaining dates include May 10th, May 24th, and June 7th. Those are all Wednesdays, and the time of the discussion is from 1:30 to 3 p.m. The IDEA Board anticipates visibility events at the Brighton Farmers Market this summer, and Chief Diversity Officer Mary Moore and Chair Mark Kokonovich are currently considering applications to bolster board membership. An update to our clean energy community priority actions and sustainability funds. We have met the conclusion of our Heat Smart campaign. The town's final Heat Smart community event was held on April 18th at the Brighton Memorial Library in cooperation with Color Brighton Green and Heat Smart Monroe Finger Lakes. The requisite number of community installations of ground air or air source heat pumps are completed, and town staff is in the process of filing the required documentation with the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, or NYSERDA, to secure the associated 3,000 clean energy community points and eligibility for a $10,000 grant towards sustainability efforts within our community. We have discussed the possibility of using that grant to replace the antiquated oil heating system with a heat pump at Brighton Town Park. And an update to our Urban League of Rochester, ESL, Town of Brighton home buying program. We are maintaining discussions with ESL in contemplation of a reparative partnership to address historical inequities in access to housing in our community. Chief Diversity Officer Miriam Moore and myself will be participating in a stakeholder discussion with Action for a Better Community tomorrow, April 27th, to continue to advance the potential for a Brighton-specific home buying program that addresses the history of restrictive covenants in this community. An update to Clean Sweep. Our Clean Sweep registration is in full swing. We've had tremendous interest from community groups, including scouting organizations, youth sports teams, area public and private schools, and even the Greater Rochester Association of Women's Attorneys. So we are looking forward to returning to full strength in numbers this year and also in programming. And then in new business, we had an update to our Council Member on Your Corner series. The 2023 schedule will include dates this summer, and our Parks Superintendent, Matt Beeman, was able to secure a quote for a pop-up canopy with the town logo, and we will be looking to allocate the necessary funds to procure that for the season sessions. Finally, I just wanted to update us on some upcoming events within the community. As I mentioned, the Brighton Farmers Market is open for its outdoor season over at Brighton High School. That's on Sundays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. The town did hold its Drug Enforcement Agency National Pharmaceutical Take Back event this past Saturday over at the Brighton Town Hall Public Safety Wing. Chief, was it well attended?
I was there for a couple hours, and that's a good question. I do not have the total pounds that we took in. I'm going to add that for our next public safety meeting.
Quite all right. Quite all
No,
right.
we were ahead of the last one
Oh,
after
excellent.
about the first 2 hours. I didn't hear the final numbers either, but we had
Right.
good steady stream while I was there.
Excellent, excellent. And we will have a euchre tournament for all those who play at the Brookside Recreation Center, 220 Idlewood Road, on Friday, April 28th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Registration for this event is required. Lunch will be provided, but we are requesting a fee of $10 per player. And as I mentioned, our Arbor Day celebration will occur at Buckland Park on Saturday, April 29th, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Brighton Clean Sweep will be at Brighton Town Hall, 2300 Elmwood Avenue, on Saturday, May 13th, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And our semi-annual electronics recycling and secure document shredding event will take place at the Brighton Highway Department parking lot, 1941 Elmwood Avenue, on Sunday, May 21st, from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. The next meeting,
If I
sorry.
could
Yeah.
back up to the Arbor Day celebration, if you don't mind,
Oh,
just to add a little detail.
Yeah,
It's
please.
a celebration, it's also a work party.
Yes.
Many hands make light. You don't need to do anything but bring yourself, dress weather appropriately, and get ready to plant a bunch of trees. Last year, we were able to place I think over 100 trees in less than an hour, hour and a half. So it's a good way to get out and spend some time out in Buckland Park.
In what may be some somewhat muddy
Yes,
conditions.
which is
So boots
better
are-
than the
boots are
year that we
advised.
had grapple pelting us out there. So
Yeah.
ready
Closed
for any
toe
kind of weather.
shoes and weather-appropriate
Yes.
attire.
thank you for letting me insert the details.
No, thank you so much, Christine, for that update. And the next meeting of the Community Services Committee will be on Wednesday, May 17th at 9:30 a.m. or immediately following our Finance and Administrative Services Committee meeting. And that will be at the Brookside Recreation Center Multi-Purpose Room, 220 Idlewood Road, but please do access the Recreation Department through the Winton Road entrance. And as always, members of the public are encouraged to attend. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And speaking of Finance and Administrative Services, Jason, I'll
Yes, the
have you
fin-
report on that.
The Finance Committee met last Wednesday, April 19th. Each of the items that were discussed in committee appear on tonight's agenda and will be discussed and voted on. In addition, we did have a discussion item where Paula Parker and Suzanne Zaso reviewed the 2023 electronic budget book on the ClearGov website with the FAST Committee. The new electronic book, while containing the same information as our previous budget books, is a more complete, transparent presentation. Paula planned to send a link to the town board members and then would make any final changes that would be requested. Once that's all implemented, then a link will be on the town's website enabling public access. Our next meeting will take place next Wednesday, May 3rd. We meet at 8:30 in the morning here in the main auditorium at Town Hall, and the public is invited to attend.
Thanks, Jason. Public Safety Committee, Chris.
Thanks, Bill. I reported on the April Public Safety Services meeting at our last town board meeting, and our next meeting will be May the 9th, 2023 at 0800 hours, the second Tuesday of the month.
Right here in this room.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris. Christine, Public Works Committee.
Similarly, Public Works has not met since the last town board meeting, but we meet next on Tuesday, May 9th at 9 a.m. or following the adjournment of the Public Safety Committee, whichever happens first. Public is always welcome to attend.
Thanks. Moving to new business. Jason, reading and approval of claims.
Yes, earlier today I reviewed claims totaling $536,468.02. Notable claims include to Amering and Johnston in the amount of $35,367.80, representing payment for plumbing services for the farmers market. Also to the Depository Trust Company in the amount of $15,693.75, representing interest payment for the 2018 bond for the Parkland purchase. Also to M&T Bank in the amount of $13,700, representing the principal payment for the bond for the Western Drive Area Sewer Project. Also to Rochester Asphalt Materials in the amount of $4,785.79, representing payment for asphalt needed for patching. And finally, to Schichtel's Nursery in the amount of $8,050, representing payment for various trees for planting. The claims all appear to be in order, and I move that they be approved.
Second?
Speaking of those patches, I got a nice email, too late this afternoon to be included, but from a resident thanking the Highway Department for patching some potholes that this resident had made me aware of. So the money's well spent. Thank you, Everett. Thank you, Jason. We have a motion seconded. Any further discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Chris, the next matter, please.
Bill, the next item is to approve the appointment of Taylor Agnello as a police officer with the Brighton Police Department. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
Chief, you want to tell us about soon-to-be Officer Agnello?
Well, sure. The good news is she passed all of her entry-level civil service requirements as of this week, which is really good news. She's going to be starting the police academy on May 10th. She has a bachelor's degree from SUNY Brockport. I think her GPA was 3.9-ish, so it was pretty good. She was number 3 on the civil service list. She was interviewed by our citizen interview panel. I think she's a good candidate and a good fit for the position. But as you know, it is a lengthy process. There'll be another 6 months of police academy training and another 14 to 16 weeks of field training when she completes the police academy. So she's got a ways to go, but I think she'll be a good fit for the department.
Thanks. And of course, last week, or 2 weeks ago at our last meeting, we authorized another police officer hire, and I was here when we saw her being sworn in out in the lobby, and
yeah, thanks for mentioning that.
She's underway.
And thanks for mentioning that. And my intent is to start to bring back the police officer candidates here so the entire town board can meet them at once at a meeting and have their family, like we used to do pre-COVID.
Pre-pandemic, yes. Good. Thank you. We have a motion seconded. Any discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Robin, the next one, please.
Certainly. The next matter seeks to approve the appointment of Dennis Basile as Recreation Leader effective May 8th, 2023. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second.
Following up on the report, Robin indicated a discussion on employment, and Dennis is filling that vacancy, one of the vacancies, so we're lucky to have him on board. Any discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Christine?
The next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to enter into an agreement with RG&E for the installation of LED lamps for certain Cobra head fixtures in an amount not to exceed $25,837.59. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
We don't always associate the initials RG&E with good news, but I think we've got some real good news here tonight on these LED lamps, and specifically the financial as well as the sustainability implications. Everett, do you want to talk about this a little bit?
Sure, we're pretty excited about this project. RG&E approached us sometime last year about converting the remaining Cobra Head streetlights to LED. So these would be the lamps owned by RG&E themselves. With the completion of this project, all Cobra Head streetlights in the town would be converted to LEDs. So the ones along the main roads that you see, Monroe, Elmwood, Winton. And so as part of the process, the town would have to pay the unexpired life of the existing features, and that's what you see before you. You know, the payback is, it varies throughout the various districts or the mains from, 2 years to 3, 4 years. But we think it's a good project overall.
Yeah, it's a great project overall, and certainly the overall payback period really is quite short. Yeah. And obviously the benefits are good. This will get, as you said, not only the LED Cobra Heads that the town owns, which had previously been converted, but the RG&E ones, and we're still hopeful of looking at the way forward to getting our neighborhood ornamental light fixtures converted over to LEDs, but one step at a time. And thank you for working through this one, Everett.
No, Bill, when you talk about the payback, this is through energy savings with the LEDs. And so once we've recouped the $25,000, which is a very modest balance on these fixtures, we're going to continue to save money through this.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And these are both, some of these lights are in street lighting districts. Many of them are in town-wide, but overall, based on the approximate annual savings you anticipate, the payback will be about 3 1/3 years, which is very good for significant environmental projects. So we have a motion and a second. Anything further? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Warner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. And the next one also, Christine, why don't you do?
Happily, well, not
Not
happily.
happily.
The next matter seeks to reject the single bid submitted for the 2023 sidewalk repair program due to cost and to rebid the project. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second.
Well, we gave you the good news, Everett. If you could talk a little bit about this, which is not quite as happy, but hopefully will turn out.
Yeah, so unfortunately, earlier in the year, we could not come to an agreement with Roman Construction, who is our current sidewalk contractor, to extend their existing contract. And so we went out to bid for services that we do on an annual basis for townwide repairs of sidewalks. And the sole bidder on the project was Roman Construction. And their bid came in much higher than our existing budget. And so we'd like authorization to reject that bid and seek additional bidders or go back out to bid. We've spoken with a couple of contractors who indicated they would be submitting a bid this round. So we're hopeful that we will receive new bids that are a bit more competitive or more in line with our budget and proceed that way.
Thanks, Everett. We know from last year's Elmwood Avenue project that sidewalk costs have been, concrete costs in general have gone up significantly, but hopefully with a few more competitive opportunities, we'll get something that works. Because the sidewalk repair is a very important part of our ongoing infrastructure maintenance. We have a motion seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Warner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Robin?
Certainly, the next matter seeks to declare as surplus certain Parks Department equipment and authorize their disposal through either in-person and/or online auction. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second.
A couple pieces of equipment here, a 2008 Ford F-250 with a snowplow attachment and a 1997 John Deere tractor with an attachment. That will go well on the antique market. We have a motion, and I'm sorry, who seconded that?
I did.
Thank you. Discussion. Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailer?
Aye. Jason, why don't you do the last one?
Yes, the next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to execute a contract with SWBR for engineering services and to act as the interim town engineer in an amount not to exceed $170 per hour on an as-needed basis. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second?
As noted, this will be on an interim basis, providing engineering services as needed on that hourly basis. We will continue to search for a traditional full-time town engineer. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailer?
Aye, and as the town attorney mentioned, we'll hold the last item for executive session. And we will go to matters of the supervisor. First, the March expense and revenue reports, which ties into the first quarter
It does.
report. Paula, the floor is
It does.
yours.
So the first quarter is always very non-eventful. So that gives me an opportunity to go through the numbers with you. So I'll try to be precise and
Buckle in.
not bore you too much, because I always like to review the budget at the beginning of the first quarter of the year. So our total operating budgets, we're going to review again the general, the highway, the library, and the debt service funds. We had 29.8 million budgeted expenditures approximately, net appropriations. Those appropriations were funded by a tax levy of $6,626,000, of which we appropriated $2,360,000 of appropriated fund balance and reserves. 31,000 of that number is reserved. That left about 10.8 million that we had to raise in other other revenues to cover the gap between our expenses and revenues. So of that 10.8 million, the lion's share of that are two sources, of course. Sales tax, which represents 5.3 million, about 50%. And then the other portion is our mortgage tax at about 900,000 or 8.4%. The rest of the revenues consist of departmental revenues that we'll kind of take a quick peek at later. So our sales tax, as everybody knows, it's paid quarterly, and the first payment for this current 23 calendar year, unfortunately, won't be here till next month, May. So I don't have any sneak peeks for you. However, we have been trending quite favorably with our sales tax. Fingers crossed, I'm hoping that trend continues. Mortgage tax, again, we've lowered that expected amount from 22. We won't see that payment until June. And I don't have a sneak peek for you there either. And again, we're hoping that we remain on budget with interest rates going higher. We're hoping just to be able to make budget and that the sales continue to be strong. So the remaining 4.5 million in the budget, the town's revenue is mainly composed of departmental income, intergovernmental charges, state aid, pilots, property tax interest, interest income. And through the first 3 months, or 25% of our calendar year, we've recorded about 1.6 million, which is just under 36% of our budget estimate. That's a little higher than it's been in previous years. The last couple of years during COVID, we've seen about 25% where we've been on trend. This year, however, we're seeing that pick back up to where we used to be prior to the pandemic. The lion's share of that is our intergovernmental charges. We've collected 82%. And these are intergovernmental charges that we charge back to ourselves for different admin services and other services we do for other funds and budgets. I'm happy to tell you that the use of money, which is our interest earnings, we've already hit a 58% of our budget. Interest, while is increasing, doesn't help us much when we're we're borrowing, but it really helps us a lot when we're investing and earning interest. So that number should be very favorable by the end of the year. So that's driving those two, the reason that we're at 35%, 35.9%. That's followed by licenses and permits at 25%, right on target. So we're seeing some favorable trends there. Expenditures, let's focus on those for the remainder of the report. Again, we've appropriated $29.8 million. 21.7 million of that relates to salaries and fringe benefits. We're well within our budget for our full and part-time wages at this time. Again, being 25% or the first quarter of the year, our salaries are coming in at 21%. So we're well within our budget. We always are within budget. We only fund and pay for the positions that are in our budget. So it stands to reason that we're usually on task for that. Overtime can be another issue because we can fluctuate, especially in the highway department, because, you know, the January, February, March, you never know what the weather's gonna be. And for the first quarter, we've spent $136,000. Now, in 2022, that number was about $165,000. So we've actually seen our overtime be a little more favorable this quarter, well, because we had a very mild snow quarter. So we are seeing that reflected in the overtime. We've only spent out about 28% of our overtime, and usually what happens this time of year, it's about 39% because of January, February, and March snow weather. So those are positive trends there. The other half of that amount is $7 million, and that's for our employee and retiree benefits, of which, of that $7 million, $3.4 million, or about 48%, relates to our medical insurance and dental premiums for active and retirees. And through the month of March, we've made 4 payments, so a little more than the 25%. We're actually at 33%. And we are trending right on budget at 32%, with having spent about $1.1 million. So again, it's easy to project that. Retirees can mess with that number a little bit by retiring and then drawing. It's tough to budget that number. So again, we're right on budget with that number. Another $2.4 million, or 33% of that number, is our state retirement system number. To date, we've approximately expensed about $500,000. That was the difference between when we paid in December. That's our amount that goes for January, February, and March. The retirement system is, they bill funny, it's lagged. We pay in December, but we pay ahead through March 31 based on estimated numbers given to us by the retirement system. So this represents about 21% of our budget. Again, trending right where we should be. Again, 25%. Through the quarter of the year, we're at 21%. So exclusive of our wages and our fringes, we've got about $8.2 million to spend on other stuff. You know, that's equipment, that's contractual, that's debt, insurance, and utilities. So for the equipment, what we're looking at is we've spent or encumbered about $900,000, and we've broken that down into spent $200,000, and we've encumbered the difference of $700,000. I'm seeing some amending being done to the budget because of late deliveries, and supply chain issues. So we ordered a truck back in 2022. We didn't get it in 2022. In some cases, we ordered in 21 and we still haven't received them. So what happens is that purchase order rolls over, it amends our current budget, and so it looks like we've got a lot of money encumbered, which we do for items that we've ordered. So that number tends to be a little bit higher at the beginning of the year and less, of course, during the end of the year. But what we've been seeing through some of these delivery issues is that encumbrance is staying high. However, we are still on budget. We would not overspend budget with equipment as through our CIP and our budget process. Those items are always called out. Our contractual expenses are 400s. We've spent or encumbered about 62%. And remember, we're encumbering those materials and items that we know we're going to purchase through the year. So actually, we've spent about 800,000 or 15% when we compare that to 25% of our budget. And we've encumbered the difference, which is about 48%. Again, running just on budget where we should be. Utility expenses are running just a little bit high. We've expensed 26% of our utility budget this year. Now again, remember, January and February and March are dark months. We tend to have less daylight. They're colder months. So it makes sense that we might trend a little bit higher for probably up until May. We'll tend to trend a little lower through the summer months, and then it ticks back up again in October, November, and December. Our insurance expenses are right on task where they should be. We are paid through June, and that would be half the year, 50%, and we've expended 41% or 160,000 of our budget. Our debt expenses are always on target as we budget for all of our debt service payments. So, in summary and conclusion, again, the first quarter tends to be uneventful, and I'm happy to report that it is uneventful and that we're on budget, and we'll have to see what the next quarter brings.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you for all that detail and for your, as always, prudent fiscal management. Can I have a motion to receive and file the reports?
I move we receive and file the March 2023 expense and revenue report.
Second?
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Millie?
Aye. Probably most of you by now have heard about the incident that occurred last Friday involving several residents who were bitten by what turned out to be a rabid fox. And I think it's important to note that the folks who were bitten, they're completely unprovoked in terms of their actions. Now, there's only one way to definitively determine that a fox, or for that matter any other mammal, is actually rabid, and that is to conduct an examination of the brain of the dead animal. And in this case, the Brighton Police Department did shoot the fox and sent it for testing, which ultimately determined that it was rabid. We've been advised by the DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, that it is still unlikely that any other fox or any other mammal in the area has been infected by rabies. I think it's important to stress that confirmed cases of rabies among wild animals in Monroe County are extremely rare. But out of an abundance of caution and on the guidance of the DEC, efforts are being made to locate and remove any surviving foxes from the infected fox's den. Recognizing again that rabid foxes are very rare, but also that on those rare occasions that there is a rabid fox, they show symptoms and then die of the disease within a matter of just a few days. We all live in a wildlife habitat here in Brighton, and foxes coexist with humans on farms, but also in the largest urban areas and everywhere in between. Generally, foxes are very skittish around humans, and the kind of extreme behavior that this fox displayed was one sign that it may in fact have been sick, and of course it was. The Brighton Police Department and our animal control officers have been reaching out to the affected residents. Chief, I know you've spoken with a number of those neighbors in the past day or two. We recognize how very serious and important it is to receive rabies shots after being bitten by any wild animal. We balance a fine line when it comes to the next steps, because we recognize that foxes, as well as other wild predators, live among us. and that foxes specifically benefit the community in many, many ways by hunting nuisance rodents and other creatures, among other things. This was their habitat long before it was ours. And there's generally no reason to be afraid of seeing a fox in your neighborhood or in a park or trail area. But there are some common sense rules to follow with any wild animals. And of course, the first is don't try to approach or pet the animal. Don't leave small pets unattended in your yard. If you are bitten by a wild animal, call a medical professional immediately. We're going to be adding some additional information from the DEC and from the county health department concerning interactions between humans and wild animals on the town's website very, very shortly. We will also plan to schedule and hold a neighborhood meeting probably next week on this issue. We'll make sure we can coordinate schedules of the DEC and others that should be at that meeting, but that's something we're going to try to do just as quickly as possible. Chief, I do thank you, Brighton Police Chief Cathaldi, who, as I mentioned, has spoken with many of the victims as well as with the DEC and the county health department, and they both assisted the Brighton Police Department in handling this issue. So more to follow on that, but I did want to provide that update. I understand the very legitimate concern that people have. I mentioned earlier the volunteer theme tonight. At lunch today, I joined County Executive Adam Bello down the street, down Elmwood Avenue at Brickstone, for their annual recognition luncheon to thank the 114 resident volunteers at St. John's Meadows and at Brickstone who serve their neighbors in that community and in many cases the broader community. These residents provide a variety of services, from teaching art classes to moderating community discussions. Some of them are members of well-known service clubs in the greater community. They do so many things in so many ways. St. John's Senior Living is an important community within the Brighton community, as are the other senior living communities here in Brighton. It really was a pleasure to greet and to thank some of those, couldn't thank all 114, but a number of those volunteers who really do go all out to make not only the St. John's community, but the entire Brighton community a better place to live. Saturday night, most of us were able to attend another volunteer recognition event, the Brighton Volunteer Ambulance Recognition Dinner. And again, we do this every year. It gives us really, it's wonderful to be able to thank the staff and especially the volunteers who train so hard and give freely of their time in the interest of the health and safety of the Brighton community and, of course, the community beyond, because through mutual aid, sometimes Brighton Volunteer Ambulance is serving members of other communities. So thank you, BVA. Thank you, St. John's Meadows. We already thanked our Conservation Board members. Volunteers make this community special, and we're grateful for them. Frankly, we couldn't do what we do without them. And when you see us posting on social media and otherwise for volunteers, we hope you will consider giving your time and talent to help make Brighton a better community. That's all I have. Matters of the town attorney.
I have nothing this evening. Thank you, Supervisor.
Other than the executive session, and we'll get to that in a minute.
Correct.
Matters of the town clerk.
Just a reminder, the fourth installment of the town and county taxes due April 30th, since that falls on a weekend, specifically this Sunday. Payments made on Monday, May 1st will be considered timely as well.
Thanks, Dan. You know, speaking of those senior living communities, I know one of the things you do is you take the town clerk's office on the road and provide right on-site services to residents in several of the senior living communities. And I had a couple of folks, people tell me, they appreciate that, and so thank you for doing that. Sure. Matters of town board. Then can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss the employment of a particular person in a matter of real estate?
So moved.
Second.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePoncio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Thank you to our ASL interpreters, Heather and Allie. Our next town board meeting will be May 10th at 7 p.m. I do not anticipate we'll be coming back into public session after the executive session, so we look forward to seeing many of you then, May 10th at 7 o'clock. Have a great evening, everybody.